Are you looking to add a calm corner or a Zen Den to your classroom? If you're wondering whether it's worth the time for your students or if it's going to be functional in your classroom, I'm here to tell you that yes, it definitely will be. In this video, I'm going to give you some reasons why it's really important you add a Zen Den or a calm corner or a calm down spot in your classroom. I'm also going to show you how you can get your hands on some posters or some resources for this designated spot in your classroom at a discount. So stick with me throughout the whole video and I'll show you how to get your hands on those at the end. And if you're still having misgivings whether or not it's going to work for you, I'm going to help you see that a Zen Den or calm spot in your classroom is not going to be overwhelming for you at all. My name is Rachel Hull. I am a former first grade teacher and I had a lot of success with social emotional learning and calming strategies in my classroom. I really found that it maximized the calmness of my students and it made it a good community. And then also I minimized a lot of the distractions that you get in first grade. So this video is going to show you the benefits of having a calm area in your classroom, and then I'll have two more videos in this series. The next one is going to be things that you should add to your calm corner. When you watch it, you'll find out that it doesn't have to be a lot. And then also the third video is going to be how to set it up and how to teach your students how to use it. So these three videos are going to be a part of a little mini series. So you're going to want to make sure you click on the little bell notification item, because then you'll get a notice each time there's a new video on the channel. So the decision of putting a calm corner or a Zen Den in your classroom is pretty personal. I know if you're like me, I was really possessive of my classroom space. I had a really pretty small classroom, and so I had to maximize every area so that learning was going to happen instead of just playtime. So when you're first starting to think about this, an area for students to go and calm down may not seem as important as a center for reading or math. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to find even just a small area so that way your students can have a safe place to go. But let's get into why it's important to have this area in your classroom. The first thing is that your students aren't going to come to you naturally knowing how to self-regulate and naturally knowing how to process through their complex emotions and feelings. And that means that when they are upset, they may not know how to self-regulate, how to calm themselves down. It may disrupt your classroom and they may become unsafe to themselves or others. And so we're really going to need to teach them how to make sure that they can process their feelings and their emotions. I'm sure you can think of students in the past that you've had that become upset throughout the day, and it kind of takes all your time away from the rest of your class and becomes a big giant disruption. So I'm sure you can think of students like that. And so these are going to be the students that this is really going to help. And having a space for those students to go is going to diminish those distractions, and it's really going to help them process their emotions, and then they're going to be able to get back in your classroom and learn. When you teach your students that it is okay to have uncomfortable emotions and you're going to show them what to do when that happens, you're going to see a lot less distractions in your room. Another reason why it's important to have a designated spot is because you want it to be safe for your students. You're going to want a safe area for them to go when they are experiencing something uncomfortable in their minds. Some students might be able to self-regulate at their desks, and you can certainly teach them how to do that. In fact, I encourage that as well. But some students need a private area to go where they're feeling sad. That way they're not in the middle of your group feeling sad and they don't want the attention. So sometimes they might want a private area to go to. And having a designated spot in your classroom also means that you're going to have one place where you store all of your sensory items or your strategy items to help them self-soothe. Usually you'll have some sensory items in your calm corner. You don't have to have a lot. In fact, the next video I'm going to show you which ones I have in my classroom and which ones you don't really need but might be fun to add in there, and which ones you might want to skip altogether. But for now, know that it's helpful to keep all these items in one place so your students know where they are and they have access to them when they need them. Besides that, it's just a really comfortable place for your students to go. School is really hard for little kiddos, and they just need to be relaxed, because the more relaxed they are, you know that the more learning can happen. So it's really going to be beneficial if kind of the anxiety level of your classroom is just kind of really easy, and your calm corner is going to really help you with that. And that brings me to the next reason why you want to have a Zen Den in your classroom. For me, I had two goals for my Zen Den. I wanted my students to have a safe spot where they could go if they were experiencing some extreme emotions, where they were safe, they weren't going to hurt themselves or others, and then they could process through it. I really wanted that for them because I just knew that my students needed it. But I also wanted my students to return to my classroom as soon as possible. I wanted them to return to their seats ready to learn. And I found, especially with practice, my students who needed to visit the Zen Den were able to do that quickly, were able to regulate their emotions, and then could join us back either at the rug or at their seats or in a center or wherever we were working. But they were able to rejoin their classmates and be able to learn again. And just a side note, there are lots of terms for this designated area in your classroom. I always used Zen Den because I just thought it was kind of cool. And then, but you could use calm corner, calming corner, calm down corner, calm spot. You pick what works for you. If you have a theme in your classroom, play along with the theme. I had the busy bees. Busy bees was my theme in my classroom. I guess I could have called it a beehive, but it wouldn't really work. But if you have a theme that works, go ahead and use that. But personalize it, make it your own, and your students are really going to enjoy this area. So let's go over some concerns you might have about putting this area in your classroom. One of the things I hear a lot is that I don't want my students to spend a lot of time in the corner, isolated from everything, and then not picking up on any of the lessons that I'm teaching. Because ideally you want them to go and then come back, but you still need to be teaching while they're there. So how long do they stay? It's a time issue. And I had the same concern. I didn't want all my students to spend, a long time in that corner. I wanted them to do what they needed to do and come back ready to learn. In the next two videos, I'm going to cover a lot more in detail about this, but I have these sand timers that I have. This one is a 5-minute sand timer, and I have a 2-minute one and a 3-minute one. And so I always have these ready to go at my Zen Den. At the beginning of the year, this is really new to them, so they need a little bit more time to practice, so they're kind of getting used to it. So I always use the 5-minute timer at the beginning of the year. They might get bored and not go through the whole thing, but I do teach my students to kind of watch when the timer's gone, or the sand is down at the bottom, it's time to rejoin my class. Now, of course, if they need extra time, I give it to them, or if I notice that they're probably okay, I'll say, okay, come on, back. And especially for those, sometimes the sand gets stuck, and so you do kind of have to monitor, but this is a really good way to continue teaching, and then that way your students will know that they are coming back to here. I'll put the link for these in, it's just an Amazon. It's an affiliate link, but you don't have to use it if you don't want to. But these were 3 on Amazon. I think they were for like $8 or something. So I'll put a link for these in the description below. But it's really nice because there's different time frames. So this one's 5 minutes. As they practice their calming techniques and get better at it, they might only need 3 or 2 minutes just to go over there real quick and come back. You'd be surprised how long 2 minutes is to a first grader. That may be all they need. But you can also keep this one handy for students who do need extra time, so you can kind of personalize it for your students. By the time you get to know them, you're going to know which timer they're going to need at the Zen Den. But when you think about it, even a 5-minute little break from one student is better than, a full-blown meltdown by, all these extreme emotions a student might feel. And, imagine how much time that takes away from your entire class. So, 5 minutes, a 5-minute break for a student is much better than a meltdown that takes away all the attention from all your kids for a lot longer than that. Now, what if your students all want to use the Zen Den all at the same time and it becomes an issue? What if they fight over the Zen Den? They all want to go. Now, I thought this would happen too. I really did. I was expecting it to happen. But in all my years of using a calm corner or Zen Den, and I taught for 22 years, and this really became a thing for me probably about 8 or 9 years ago. When it first started happening, when we first started talking about social emotional learning, and I did have a lot of students who needed something and I didn't know what it was, but then once I started using it, it really helped. So it's been about 8 or 9 years, and in 8 or 9 years I never had a problem with an argument over who gets to go to the Zen Den. Never. And the reason for that is because I did a really thorough job of teaching my expectations about what that space was for and what you need to do at that space. So my students knew already right away it was not a play area. I think if it was a play area, I would have had a problem, but because I did a really good job of front loading them with my expectations, they figured out it's not something that I can go and play at. It's more of a task to do or a job to do when you go there. And plus, believe it or not, a lot of your students aren't going to want to go or need to go. If you have a classroom where you're getting up and moving around and you do have a lot of hands-on activities and you're keeping them busy, they're not going to see that as, they're not going to FOMO about your Zen Den. They're not going to see it as something they want to do just because it looks fun. They're going to see it as something they go to if they need to. Now let's talk about space. We touched upon this earlier. My room was really small and narrow, so I actually did kind of have this corner where my poster drawers were, and it was kind of this unused space, so I did have kind of a regular corner-sized area that I set aside for my my Zen Den, and so that helped too. But what happens if you don't have space in your classroom? I know a lot of classrooms, my kids' classrooms for elementary school didn't have walls. They had like particle things, and it was just kind of one of the wall-less buildings. And so what happens if you don't have a space for your Zen Den? Now this area doesn't even need to be a corner. It can be the side of a wall. It can be even portable. You need something out of the way but still in sight. And so you can even maybe have a rug and a tub, and they just pick up both, and they know a designated spot to go to on the floor, maybe toward the back of your room, and that's your Zen Den. It can even be portable. Or it can be just the side of a wall. Ideally you'd like to have a wall so you can add posters, and I'll show you those in a second, but you can add posters to it, your expectations. And then I have different kinds of posters. So I have these that show the different kinds of strategies that they can do. There's 16 of these. And so I always have these posted, and so they know what to try to do when they're upset. And also, like, students don't know how to identify a lot of the more complex emotions they have. And so I do have these emotion posters posted as well. So we're going to cover that in the next video too, but just to know that these are available. So, they don't know that they're nervous. They just know they're feeling something uncomfortable. So these are also posted. But if you don't have space on a wall for that, you can get them on cards like this, and you can put them on a little key ring, just one of these little guys. And that way you can keep these in your sensory tubs. And that way they're right there for you, and everything's right there. So especially if you want a portable calm corner, you can have the tub and the rug. I think the rug would just make it more comfortable. I wouldn't really do a chair because they want to feel a little bit more cozy. So nice little, bathroom area rug thing. I always got mine at Kohl's, I think. Also, you can have the same, this one's excited, angry. The emotion cards can go in your sensory tub as well, so they can flip through these also. Now, if you're looking for help setting up this area, maybe setting up your tub, or you need some more posters on your walls, all of these posters and cards, everything is available on my website, and the link is in the description below. But if you use the code CALM22, you'll get 25% off any of the calming corner products. So like the posters and anything that your students need to self-soothe and identify their emotions. So think about your classroom. Do you have a designated spot that you can use, even if it's a portable one? I want you to kind of really think about how important it is for your students to regulate their emotions, and so they can come rejoin you in your classroom. So I'd like to really encourage you to set up a Zen Den or Calm Corner. And I'll be back in the next video, which is all about what I put into my sensory tubs and what my Zen Den has in it. And then after that, I'll show you how to teach your students how to use it so that it's not a play area and they can use it and then return it to your classroom. So I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next video.